That's a nice photo. I think we laughed at that photo in the early days, but now looking back at it, I'm quite jealous of all the dark hair that was still available and the youthful smiles. That was pretty good fun. One of my good mates made that Hills hoist, just pulled one down and converted it into an art hanging hoist.
I remember how hard it was to reset that thing up.
Yeah,
It would take all afternoon. And it cut your hands, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
That was horrible.
That was hours of work. But it ended up being a pretty good exhibition.
In Romel Park, right?
We did one there, and we also did one just outside of Woolies on Hartley Road. So
nice. You got to get that grocery market, the fruit buying audience.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we sold a painting that day, but it was good fun.
I reckon so. Early, we sort of, we hit go. I don't know, early 2012, and you're waiting. It's everything's happening, and then there's just crickets. It's always just crickets, nothing. And it took months to sell an artwork, I think.
The first artwork was a big celebration, and with that sale, we made one tiny little feature on the website. And that's basically all we could do, was build one little feature at a time by selling an artwork.
It was that first one, or maybe one of the first few. We had an abandoned cart and they'd put their phone number in. We hadn't sold anything, and I'm like, I'm going to call this guy, see if I can close it. And I called him, and he's like, are you guys legitimate? And I'm like, yes, definitely am. Yes, absolutely legitimate. He's like, how do I know I'm not going to get scammed and won't get my art? Like, I guarantee it. You will get your art. And I had to convince this guy. It took ages on the phone to convince him to, because I think we only had PayPal as well at the time. That was a big uptake when we actually had a credit card.
But do you remember the first website? The artwork scrolled across the screen, and you had to kind of catch it. So if you saw something you liked, you had to get your mouse and hit it, or you never saw it again.
A real gamified shopping experience.
It was a difficult exercise to buy an artwork in the early days.
And for SEO, we just stuffed the front page with, pages of art text.
But we sold some paintings, and that hadn't happened, and selling them online. So that was a great kind of high five moment, getting those first few sales. Because no one ever believed you could sell artwork online. Everyone said you had to see it in the flesh. We were like, well, no, it makes sense to sell it online. And I remember as a kid being dragged along to galleries. So those galleries are still going. And I wasn't a very good audience at 9 or 10 years old. They probably threw me out. So selling art online to people like me seemed like a pretty obvious thing to do.
Well, I reckon we were lucky to not have been from the art industry, because any of the art industry people we talked to would just, sort of laugh us out of the building, or just, when you hear pity in someone's voice, I was like, good luck, guys. Good luck. I prefer people laughing at me than pitying me. But so no one thought it was a good idea that we spoke with who was in the arts.
Yeah.
And it was kind of lucky that, I was an app designer, you're an accountant, and Phil was a different type of accountant. So I think
he was into technology too. He was right into SEO and everything.
Sure, yeah. But none of us were in art, and I think that's pretty helpful.
Because you had to look at it in a very pragmatic way. And if we knew the art industry, which is the opposite of transparent, and it's quite complex and really driven by personalities and connections. This was about democratizing art and allowing any artist anywhere the opportunity to list their art and present it. And so we just began, as you know, with organic traffic, and over time the artworks did start to sell, and then it grew. All of us had jobs elsewhere because we just worked on it for free for years until we convinced you to quit your lucrative or, up and coming app designer job and join Bluethumb and work for free.
There was a funny moment. I was working at Outwear, and I got on really well with the founders. I loved that job. That was the only job I'd had that I loved. And I was good at designing apps. There was this point where, I don't know, a few years in, we were still working, and I pinged a journo, and we're about to get written up in The Age. And I had to come clean to the boss. Got this other thing, like, it's an art website, and I don't think I'd really talk much about it. I was allowed to work on side things, but it wasn't. Yeah, it was sort of this big writer. And then Apple featured us that year too.
Yeah, that was huge.
And at the App Design Awards, I wasn't senior enough to be sent up to Sydney by the guys because I'd nominated for some design awards.
Outwear when you design.
Yeah, for some of the apps we designed, and then Bluethumb won one. And they sent someone up to collect it on my behalf, even though I'm meant to be working. Yeah, so that was 2013, I think.
That was good. That boost was huge. We got a heap of traffic and a heap of publicity relative to our size in 2013 when the App Store featured Bluethumb.
Yeah, Apple featured us. Yeah, and that was a big deal. That, you know,
Beautiful.
we had
the logo was a thumbprint. I remember designing that.
Designing's a strong word.
It's a generous word.
Right click copy. We didn't have that many users on the app, and then Apple featured it, and we spiked to 7,000 dailies from that point, and it was just on.
The other thing I remember was,
in the beginning, people didn't believe that you could ship artwork. You know, they thought paintings are too fragile, but actually they're really quite strong, as long as they're packaged well. And we never lost an artwork until in 2013, one of the delivery trucks got held up at gunpoint and the whole lot was stolen. And I spoke to the artist, I'm really sorry this has happened. And she was so upset that she left Bluethumb.
Oh no.
And I was like, wow. That's when I got a feel for how passionate artists are about their work. Yeah. You know, that this is not a product. This is not coming from a factory. This is, the way an artist creates artwork is something different. So when you buy it, like from the creator to the buyer, it's a very different experience. And that was a real light bulb moment for me at that point.
Oh, I wasn't there.
I wasn't there, but we just found out later that everything had been stolen and some armed robbers had held up the truck driver and guarded the truck.
Far out.
Yeah.
Well, I hope they enjoyed the artwork then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2014 was an interesting year too because we went...
Copenhagen.
Yeah, we went to Copenhagen. So Creative 3 had this really cool kind of accelerator program and competition for creative tech startups. One way or another, we entered it. And we ended up going to Brisbane, and that's a photo with Malcolm Turnbull. We'll come back to that.
That was the Prime Minister of Australia.
That was not my finest moment, but we'll come to that.
I don't know where it is.
That's one of our co-working spaces. But yeah, we won the Creative 3 Award in 2014, and that was brilliant. And the CEO at the time, Anna Rook, went with us, and we were the Australian representative in Copenhagen for a global competition of creative startups. And that was a really fun experience. We didn't win, but we didn't care. We loved it. And then later on, they became investors when we did a second cap raise. So that was a great experience, you know, and it's nice to be validated when it was so early on, and it was completely bootstrapped. This was just 3 founders putting in a bit of money at the beginning, and then when we sold artwork, we just reinvested in technology.
I do remember one of the best milestones we ever had in Bluethumb was when we got our first part-time customer support person.
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
My God, I was bad at that and I was doing it. And
Phil was worse than you at customer support. No offense, Phil, but your customer support is not your calling.
Yeah, he never failed to misspell someone's name on a reply. No, that was so punishing. I was so bad at it and had to do it. And, you know, I had to give up my curating as well, which I enjoyed, but I don't think our collectors did. So
I still like curating, to be honest. I still like always going through the artworks and looking for the amazing art that comes through. And I think my favourites list is now like over 3,000 artworks buried away. It's valuable.
I have it's funny, you learn, you think you don't have a type of collecting taste. Like I always think, it's eclectic, I've got this wide range of tastes, and then I look at my favourites, I'm like, actually, I've got a very specific taste.
So do I, and unfortunately it's the exact opposite of my wife. We have only a couple of times agreed on an artwork, and then we've bought them, and it's been the best decision. Some Indigenous works we've got, and I know you've got some great artwork in your home, have been the best probably, I think the thing in my house I cherish the most, right? Because you cannot replicate it, and your opinion on the artwork never changes. Like you always appreciate it. And other thing I've learned is that the artist's time, their kind of sweet spot in their career when they're painting, it's actually more fragile and it's shorter than you often expect. So their career can end. You know, sometimes they have a degenerative eye disease. I've met several artists like that, or they pass away, or something changes, and there's usually a period, and it's the same with, I guess, musicians and artists, that it's not forever. There's often a sweet spot when they're really good. And if you see it and it's them, like, you should just go and collect it and keep it. You know, you'll never regret it.
You should have been on the Art in My Home pod. That's an interesting insight. And I was just thinking, like, that does hold true for a lot of artists I like, and musicians too. You know, they have these kind of amazing purple patches.
Well, when you were in Cosmo Black, didn't you nearly recruit Wally, who went on to be Gautier?
Yeah. We told him to quit his shitty band and and join the next set of rock stars. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We wanted him as a drummer.
Yeah.
Didn't quite get him there.
Smart enough to say no.
I tried to convince Matt, who from Eat Now and Menulog, to quit your dead startup, join Bluethumb. We need a developer.
Look, that is the art of being a founder. You're trying to get really smart and really competent people and convince them to come and work in your startup and sell a dream. And that's I think that's an important skill set.
Pretty funny. So, you know, we've always run a company across Adelaide and Melbourne, because Ed, you've always been in Adelaide, and I've been in Melbourne for 20 years. So we kind of built up two teams, and the hiring, you know, we always kind of collaborate on hiring, but one of the first hires here in Melbourne was Freddie, who was fantastic and with us for many years. And his application video for an internship, I never showed you or Phil because it was I'd say, as an unconventional application. It was like a 4 or 5 stanza Banjo Patterson style poem filmed, put on YouTube in this dark room about why he should be the intern. And it was unhinged. It was just insane. But
better
like,
edit that bit out. Freddie might get upset.
No, it's still, I've still got the unlisted link somewhere. I'm going to try and bring it up for this. It's so good.
Freddie was a very brilliant marketer. He was great.
Well, when I say unhinged, but like brilliant, I was like, this guy has to work for us, and I can't show Phil and Ed because they'll say no. So I never actually shared his application with you.
No, I've never seen it.
No, but it was amazing. I'm like, this guy is so
He'll
good.
do anything.
Yes, you're right. Like a rambling but poignant poem to apply. And so he put it on YouTube, and that was the link he sent. And I'm like, he's hired. And
so actually, well, I think what George is also saying is that we hired people before we hired ourselves.
Yeah.
So Jenny was doing customer service, and that was awesome. Freddie was doing marketing, and then the team started to build. We got our first, 2015 was an important year because we got our first investment in then, and that's when we really had capital to double down and build our custom Ruby on Rails website, which we're still building today. I don't know how many lines of code it's up to, but it's probably 30 million lines of custom code or something outrageous. And also we had a marketing budget, and we could begin to hire some people. So we didn't get hired for many years. We just worked on Bluethumb. But once we got investment, then things got a little bit more formal. I actually had an employment contract, and I had a wage. You know, I was able to afford 2 meals a day, and away we went. So that was pretty good. That was a big shifting point when it went from being an organic business to a startup. And I remember like that feeling of, you better succeed now, mate. You have to do anything to make this work. This is your one shot. And I think that was the attitude we all took.
When we were talking about direction before we did that, you know, we were at a crossroads because it was our own money. We kept pumping back in. It was growing, but it was hard. And, you know, we had some frank conversations, you know, how big can this get? Should we raise money? You know, what do we do? And I remember arguing with Phil. It's good to have a pragmatist on the team, versus like an insane optimist, I think. But I remember saying, this thing can be a unicorn. This can be $1 billion. Look at SoundCloud. This can be a unicorn. And Phil going, there's no way we will ever sell 100 paintings in a month. And I'm like, okay. Well, do you know what? Do you know how many paintings we sold yesterday? I looked, 105
Nice. That was a good
in
day.
a day. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
105.
That's a good day's
So, no.
I don't think anyone else
In Australia would have sold 105 paintings a day.
No.
Perhaps an auction, perhaps an auction at its peak, but generally I'd be interested to know their volumes, but maybe they could match it in a big auction, but across a month, no one would match the volume that is sold through Bluethumb online.
Yeah.
And the really important bit is that what it does is it helps on the artists, because one of the key things you take away is the thousands of artists who've either built a career or launched a career or just had that encouragement to keep going. You sell a painting and you go and get the next set of materials and you paint some more and it builds. Like, it's just compounding. Because work, like art is a form of work, and like anything, you just need to repeat and keep working and get better and better and better. And there's some amazing studies, I think it was out of Atomic Habits, about some studies done in the US with an art class. It was a photography art class, and the lecturer divided the class in two and said to one half, you just need to take the 3 best photographs you can this year, and that's what you'll be graded on. And to the others, you need to take as many photographs as you can, and you'll be graded on your volume. And at the end of the day, the group that took the most photographs also had the best. So they had the highest quality. It was that absolute repetition and volume that taught them. And I think that's a lot with everything. It's like Bluethumb, we've done our 10,000 or 20,000 hours. I don't know how many, but it's a hell of a lot more than 10,000. So yeah, I think we're rambling. Where did we get to? 2015?
So back to 2015.
That's when we met.
Can you tell us about?
That from the photograph, things look well. That's the Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull. Sorry. Have we forgotten him already?
Yeah, that was in the heady days of the ideas boom. Actually, he came in and he talked to us, and he pitched us Bluethumb better than I've ever pitched it.
I know. I was unable to speak when he walked into the room.
He came in and said, oh, okay, you're an art platform. I see you're disrupting the current opaque gallery model. You're letting artists grow careers outside of that. You're probably expanding the whole market for art, I'd say. You're growing the whole pie here. It looks disruptive. It looks innovative. I would say this has got great potential. I'm like, holy moly, can I write all this down?
Yeah.
Where are you available to pitch people for?
Yeah.
He was in.
I think I had lost my voice a few minutes earlier because Bluethumb had actually crashed and gone down.
As 404.
We had a 404 error, bad gateway. So bad gateway? Yeah, and he walked in the door and we're like trying to phone the CTO, like, mate, we're down, quick, get it back up. And he was at lunch and he comes back to piles of missed calls. So we just had to angle our laptop screen away from him at the time and let him do the talking.
Yeah, no, that was good. And then the next stop on the ideas boom was Adelaide, because that was in Melbourne. And we got a t-shirt printed for our sister Rose, who'd written a few blog posts. It wasn't working for us, and said, "Here's the Adelaide office," and she got to meet him too.
Yeah. So that was our brush with fame.
Yeah. Actually, at that co-working space there, we had a great time. That was sort of, I was still working part-time making apps, and would do a day or two in there. Then we started growing the team a little bit, and I'd had a 2-day, part-time co-working desk in that co-working space. And then we added an intern, so we needed 2 desks part-time. And then we kept growing the team, and we sort of kept ignoring their asks, their emails about how many people we have. And there was a point where we had 8 people crowded around this small desk, and we were in full time by then. And the guy who ran the co-working space came over and said, "Are all these people on Bluethumb?" Oh, I don't know who they are. He's like, "Well, George, you're currently paying part-time for 2 desks, and I can count 8 people here. So they look, I can see on the screen, some of them are on Bluethumb."
So we did have to run the company on the smell of an oily rag in the early days.
Well, look, can we renegotiate? And then I'm like, don't answer any of their questions. You have the right to remain silent. So they were really great to us because we did take the piss a bit there, but it was a really great time. And Freddie would bring his little dog Grungle in. It was this friendly Jack Russell who once, because they had these old wooden floors and there was a basement below where other people would work, someone came running up and said, "Who poured a drink on my laptop?" And I'm like, look, the dog has pissed through the floorboards onto this other guy's laptop.
Oh dear, you can edit this out, I think.
Anyway, we obviously, sort of kept our heads down there.
Yeah. So 2016, all I remember from the next few years was just working so hard because we had that capital in at the end of 2015 and we just had to grow it and it was just mission critical. And in, as a custom site with a couple of engineers, the site could go down. And I remember calling our lead engineer at 6 a.m. on Easter Sunday morning. "Oh, I'm sorry, mate, but this is the weekend, we've got to sell art and Bluethumb's down." And he duly got on and brought it up. Like, they were so committed. And we just worked really, really hard through, to be honest, like, it was just an ongoing thing. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
Got 2017 was the first ever art prize.
The first ever art prize. Yeah, we had Grand Visions. Ooh.
Was it No Vacancy?
Yes.
Yeah, No Vacancy, yeah.
That's right. Kirsten Sylvia. Yeah, I remember her artwork too. It was really cool.
Yeah.
We did have a few. Our art prizes were always surrounded by something wild happening.
Yeah.
Floods one time, a tragedy in Melbourne another time. But as events themselves, like the art prize is really cool, and we had a lot of fun with them. And it sort of peaked around, I think 2021 was it? We put up $250,000 and the first prize was $150K, so that was really cool. It's awesome to give back as much as you can to artists and to have the events. I mean, we started to take them off a bit later because really we just doubled down on being an online marketplace, online art gallery, which is our origins. We decided to sharpen the focus online, and really kind of stick to the core of being an online creative startup. We started that way. I mean, we obviously got this amazing Melbourne gallery and we've had an Adelaide gallery. But I think that just sticking to the core of the business and really trying to grow it through those years. And of course, like, we just worked away and there were plenty of years where it got pretty close with sailing to the wind. I certainly remember remortgaging the home a couple of times. And then I also distinctly remember, as with many, many other e-com businesses and actually businesses around the world, what it felt like in March of 2020 as COVID broke out, and just sitting there thinking, we sell art, this is highly discretionary, and we're at the time thinking we've got perhaps the largest economic recession. So that was perhaps, I think that was the worst month I've ever had, March of 2020.
And it was overnight. So we were trucking along well. We were growing
By
fine.
well, we had a plan to get to break even, and we were running on the smell and oily
yeah.
drag again.
So we probably should have had a bit more buffer, but we, on a chart and our numbers, you could see exactly where we'd cross into the green.
We could forecast the intersection.
And that was going to be probably in April 2020. Forecasted, right? And so, but things were going well, and then kind of overnight in March, the floor dropped out of everything, like it did for everyone. And we had weeks left before we had to turn the lights out. And it was super heavy, and I'm sure heaps of businesses went through this, but, I remember having a long chat to Dad, and he kind of said, well, how much should this thing exist? Or words to that effect, like, you need to think about, should it exist and how much is it worth to you? And I'm like, okay, I'd never considered should it exist. I'd never in my life. I'd always just thought this is a great thing. We're going to build it. We're going to be successful. And I'm like, okay. And so I sort of, that afternoon, it was all afternoon and night, sort of sat there thinking. The next day I'm like, it should exist. This is a really good thing, and we've just got to kind of bet the farm. And so I sold my house that week. I put it on the market, off market, the next day with an agent I'd already sort of knew. we cleaned it up, and by the next week I'd sold it, and I think you remortgaged. And yeah, we
Hopefully my wife's not watching.
and
I think
yeah,
I told her about. Well, I'm sure I said this is what I'm doing. No, we need to do this. Don't worry.
yeah, but like, look, and we had a deal with our backers. For every dollar the founders put in, they would match, and they were in the similar hot water with whatever they were doing. And so, yeah, we
That's right. We did tip. Everyone tipped in. Every investor.
yeah,
every
yeah.
Founder.
So they made that deal with us, which was generous, and so. Yeah, the next week we just poured money back in, and the team also were like, whatever it takes to kind of keep the show running. So they did a whole bunch of stuff. They cut back some hours for a while, and we went out to every supplier. Can you give us a discount? Can you pause?
Yeah.
It was hardcore, and I'm sure every other business had this. But we came out of
April was a complete shock because we're up 50%. And we did not expect that. And then we're up 50% again in May, and just like, what on earth has happened? And that was the effect that no one could have foreseen COVID, and no one could have foreseen the immediate impact of some online businesses. Some shut down, but some like us, people are at home and they just bought art. And it was quite incredible. It was staggering. I've never been more staggered by what happened in April and in May. Yeah. But as it built, it turned into some very good, strong years. Because if you look at a startup, like particularly the era, so we had investors in, right? There's that intense pressure to grow and to burn money. It's growth at all costs and create the value and so forth. And then you go out to market and you raise more money when you need to, and you're kind of on that gravy train, which incidentally has changed now. Startups are VCs using very differently now, but we actually had some quite incredible years, and the growth was phenomenal, and a lot of artists really, really did well and really set themselves up and came into their own, which is fantastic. And then the last few years have been a little bit more difficult, as cost of living pressures rose. You could see just people tightening the belt, and that's natural across all businesses. So, a few years, and we just adapted and adjusted to that, and it's good now. I mean, we're recording this; it's early September in 2025, and really, our first 2 months of financial year, July and August, have been great months. We've turned it around to profitability, which is essential, really, for its sustainability. It's like the long-term vision of Bluethumb is to empower artists. It always has been. I mean, our vision was to build the biggest in the world. We've got so far the biggest in Australia, and there will be a new CEO and new leaders that will hopefully take it on and continue on that journey and chase that huge elusive goal of the biggest in the world. That'll be really interesting to watch that. I mean, what you may have just picked up from that is what I'm saying is that George and I in August have stepped down as our roles as operators, as co-CEOs of Bluethumb. We're still shareholders, we're still directors, we're still absolutely committed to it, but we're just not in the weeds. We're not going to be in the weeds anymore. It's going to be handed over, and that'll be really exciting to see. The existing team at Bluethumb is really experienced and really committed, so it's very stable. And we think, we've got the business in a really good position that a new CEO can hopefully continue on with the journey. And that, so far, we've summarised about 13 years of startup life.
I've got more for you.
Oh, you've got more, have you?
Yeah. From the first day, we've had a pretty simple, I guess, North Star and a pretty simple mission, and that's kind of coming from outside art, focus on better technology for artists to sell artwork. And that's it's actually quite easy. If that is your focus, you can build a big good thing, because it didn't exist, and so we're going to keep doing that.
Look, technology has always been the leverage, and that's what we really focused on. We knew in the early days we'd never have the most money, we'd never have the biggest of anything, but if we could build better technology, that was the lever to create the scale, and it's allowed us to. If you look at a global scale, I would argue that Bluethumb is one, if not the most effective online art marketplaces globally. It's a very efficient marketplace that's really in balance between collectors and artists. So there's a lot of artists that are succeeding on it and getting their sales, which is important.
I always like to think that, because the mission has been help artists sell more art directly to the collectors with technology, right? We're completely aligned. When an artist succeeds, we succeed.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that complete alignment is perfect to build something big and great. There are other kind of art websites or whatever, but if you're not focused on helping an artist better their career, sell more art, do more, connect better with collectors, if your primary focus isn't that, I just don't think you're going to build a big great thing. And so, you know, your intentions as a team matter so much because they inform every tiny little decision you make when you're on your own working or as a team. And that intention has always been there and is always going to remain. You know, when we help an artist kind of do better, we'll do better.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, what you don't realize with a startup and a creative technology company is the number of decisions you need to make. So you really need that framework and that clear mission, and to be totally committed.
Yeah.
And if you do that,
it's
you have a chance.
It's hard, but it's easy. You know, it just takes 13 years of work, ups and downs. Oh, one thing I just thought of actually, this was a recent one. But, you know, we talked about COVID 2020 is super hard, and then it was great and for art, selling art, obviously not great in many other respects. But we had something, I reckon it popped up last year. Mum was staying with me. I was taking my kid to swimming on a Saturday morning, and Alex, our CTO, called me on the phone and said, "George, we have a problem." I'm like, "Hey, Alex, what's the problem?" He's like, "Our bill on AWS, on Amazon, our bill for the month so far is $7 million US." Well, that seems pretty high, Alex. Isn't it normally $10,000 to $15,000 like
a month?
A month? Yeah. That seems fairly high, and more than the cash in the bank as well, which is another small worry. I'm like, "Alex, have we spent the money? Or is this an error?" He's like, "Let me confirm. I'm working on it." I'm like, "Okay, mate." Yeah. But basically, there were three options. Number one, we'd been hacked, and you know, someone would mined Bitcoin or something and spent the money. Number two, we'd introduced a terrible bug that had somehow churned up all of this compute. Or number three, Amazon had screwed up. But like, they're the biggest company in the world, or the closest to. You know, they're a $2.4 trillion company. How are they going to get a bill this wrong and send it to us? And their support was saying we'd spent the money. They were pointing to where we'd spent it. And so that was a pretty bad swimming lesson with my kid.
I remember that weekend too.
I was standing in the pool with you, just staring at the wall.
George, the kid's underwater.
Just 1,000-yard stare for half an hour. I was like,
he's not swimming.
I was above myself in the pool, just staring. Anyway, it turned out Amazon had made a mistake. They were very apologetic.
That was only 50 hours of work on a weekend.
They sent us a drink bottle.
A drink bottle.
I've still got it. No,
right.
they were
drowning sensation.
They were fine and said sorry, and but look, you get used to those ups and downs.
You do get a few grenades, but on the whole, things have been very good.
Yeah, by far ups. You know, it's overall, it's never felt like a job, really. It's just such a fun, great thing to do, to build something you care about. So,
yeah, I think it's the greatest privilege to be able to actually go and found and start a business you want to. For me, that was always the dream too. I think we were brought up in an entrepreneurial household and told to go and chase it. And eventually we did.
Pretty funny. I reckon more than 10 times you've tried to pivot us to a car platform.
Never.
Once every 6 months is a suggested pivot.
No, that's just a joke.
We've remained in art. Yeah.
Maybe that's career number 2.
Touch on briefly opening the galleries in 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool opportunity. I mean, I remember the Adelaide co-working space as being, this is what I remember it. I remember being tapped on the shoulder by a health inspector because someone in the co-working space apparently hadn't paid some sort of council rates, and there was garbage piling up behind this co-working space, and there was a pub there, and apparently it was a hazard. And I was like, Some guy I've never met taps me on the back of the shoulder and wearing a Bluethumb. I'm like, I have no connection to this bill or that garbage. I'm really sorry. But it did provide extra impetus to move out. And we did get in 2020 for Adelaide a cool little gallery, really. I'd spent a lot of time, when I rode into work, I made sure I went down a bunch of streets that I thought were where our target market really was. And I just kept riding up and down the streets looking for vacant shops. And the particular street I wanted, pretty much 2 families owned all the buildings apart from one, and that's the spot we got. COVID had just hit. They were about to put in a tenant, they lost the tenant, and we went in there at a really good rate. And it'd been a retail shop, so it looked amazing. We ended up having a really cool gallery for quite a few years, probably 4.5 years like that. And then we decided, look, let's just go back to our roots of being online and shift away from front-facing gallery. I mean, but Melbourne, we've had galleries, we've had...
we've had a couple. Yeah. We sort of started in a Collingwood shared gallery space that was great, and then we got our own little gallery in Collingwood, which was lovely but very small, kind of on top of each other. But yeah, loved that. And then again, I guess it was around COVID, we got this big, great Richmond gallery, which has been like super cool. It's very nice to come into work and kind of come through a gallery. You see new art on the walls. You can kind of see it in person because we've got like 400,000 original artworks on Bluethumb, I think, right now. And the artworks on a screen, like art always looks better in real life. But, without the gallery, you don't get to be surrounded by it in your day-to-day work. So yeah, it's just so nice to come in and kind of have it here, be able to kind of meet people in person who are here to buy art or even artists. And yeah, we've kind of done openings and events. And we've got this amazing mural that I love on the side of the Richmond Gallery by Lucy Lucy. It's like 3-story high thing. It's the hardest permit I've ever had to get is that mural permit. Shout out to Richmond Council for making my life hell. But we got there, and yeah,
it is an awesome mural.
It is, yeah, it is.
Added a lot of value to the building. Make sure the landlords know that.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful space. So I love coming in here. But yeah, like Ed said, we sort of, our reach and scale is through the internet. And, we've launched in the USA as well, and that's growing well. Like that's the quickest growing part of the business is the USA. And so you can only focus on a couple of things. So we sort of decided, look, we'll keep our focus on growing our kind of audience for artists and collectors online. And yeah, I still love working out of a gallery though.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very nice. Do you have any more questions for us, Christina?
Yeah, I do. How did you decide to kind of invest into the Indigenous art centres?
It was just always a passion. I always felt that Indigenous art was undervalued in a world sense, because what you're doing is combining the intersection of like 50 or 60,000 years of culture, like the longest living culture, which is expressed in several forms, but painting being one of them. And here it is in art that you can buy. And I just never understood how it wasn't worth more in a global sense. And I think one day it will be, and that we're only slowly coming around to it. So I always wanted to do that. And in the early days when I was researching how art centres worked, I think at the time there's sort of 88 or 89 art centres around Australia, they had a certain amount of funding, but it really wasn't a whole lot across that many art centres. And then they had to sell their art. And in sort of remote Indigenous communities, basically the only source of income is art. Like the stats are 93% is from art. Right. So that's it, that's everything. So it was really apparent that we had to help and we had to sell art for remote artists and for Indigenous communities. So, and from, I guess, a personal perspective, it opens you up to just, it's so interesting, and really incredible. And my 2 favourite artworks that I have at home are both Indigenous paintings.
Yeah, my favourite is the Hubert I've got.
Yeah, we've both got a Hubert which we love, and I've got a Jimmy Donegan as well. And I remember buying the Jimmy Donegan, and it was one of the last ones he did, I think.
He won the Telstra Art Prize, right?
Yeah, I think so. Don't quote me, let's double check that one. I think he did.
Yeah.
Hubert's won a lot of prizes, including the most auspicious being the Bluethumb Art Prize.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
But Jimmy, at the time, like, you know, when you run a startup, you literally take the lowest salary you can to survive on. So this painting was out of our reach. And it's one of the ones my wife and I both love, but we did buy it, and I'm really glad we did. You know, you never, ever regret that. And then the opportunity doesn't come again, right? So that's cool. And also some of the best experiences, like, so much time I have spent with my head buried in a laptop, which is unsurprising when it's a tech company. But to go out to the remote Indigenous communities, that has been a highlight as well. You know, I was up in the Tanami Desert and around Alice Springs recently, or last year, and that was just fantastic. And meeting artists and watching them at work and how they go about it and how the communities work. And if you're lucky, sometimes they'll start telling you stories, you know, and it takes a while. And when they do, when you know, like elder artists start telling you about what's going on, you really need to listen, because they speak softly and they probably won't say it twice, and it's very interesting. And yeah, so anyway, they've been some of my highlights.
Yeah, I think with that as well, we had to make a choice back. So I think we'd raised a bit of money again in 2018, and we sort of were like, okay, what's the next thing we build? Where do we invest in? And I can pretty clearly remember the two options at the time was, okay, do we launch into the USA, which is the world's biggest art market, or do we build this kind of fairly complex feature to allow Indigenous art centres to kind of list their whole, all of their collective of their artists onto us, and also go out and try and onboard some of them and kind of show them you know, how they can reach a bigger audience. And so I remember that was like, you know, is it A or B? And we chose the art centres because it was like, it's such great art. There's a demand for it, but it wasn't getting to the collectors.
Really hard to get to market.
Yeah, and it was like, I think this will help us, but it's also something like I kind of really want to see more of in the world, right? So I'm really glad we went in that. You know, we did launch in the USA eventually down the track, but I'm super glad we did it in that order and actually put a proper focus and built it.
And particularly, it really expanded the market for emerging artists. Because if you look at sort of Indigenous artists, right at the top, the established artists, they will have a path to market, right? They'll be sought after. And there's also, it's great, there's some collectors overseas like Steve Martin who are making Indigenous art, like they're raising the profile on a global scale. And then they would have art, like art fairs, Indigenous art fairs. And generally, if you speak to the art centre managers, they're selling the, like, at high volume, really entry level, like the very affordable pieces. So they had this great gap in the emerging range, and that's really been Bluethumb's sweet spot. So you could just get this incredible art, and it's been great to go out and see the art centres, and also to sell a lot of it. I mean, if I could do one thing, it would be on that, is to get more of it on Bluethumb. You know, to that funnel through, because it's so difficult for them, because they have these really big centres with a lot of artists, and it's a real kind of like hub of activity, and it's not just painting. Like, they're there to paint, but all sorts of things. A lot of the community, it's a focal point. So there's a lot going on. And to get it online and to get it sold is a bit of a mission. So sometimes, you know, we'll try to take big batches, or we'll deliberately try to support an artist to give them that boost in their career. And if we could do more of it, that would probably be a life goal I'd like to add to. Another thing I'd still like to do at Bluethumb.
And actually on that, we were the first online sellers to get like certified by the Indigenous Art Code, which is kind of there to kind of make sure you're selling ethically and enough, you know, most of the money's going back to the artists and that stuff. So we went and talked to them and showed them our process. And so, we were certified by them many years ago. And actually, one art centre we've just onboarded is Groot Islands. Do you know that?
That's cool. Huh?
Yeah, super cool. Like, they've just had a whole bunch of art repatriated that was kind of, you know, the British Museum are pretty good at stealing, going.
Not maybe not the museum, perhaps some early explorers took some cultural artworks, and then they have returned it.
I'll start that again. And one art centre we've just onboarded is the Groot Islands, which is an amazing kind of have an amazing art culture that was kind of partly forgotten, I think, and has kind of come back recently. And they've had a whole bunch of art repatriated from, a museum in maybe Manchester, but in the UK, it's come back, that was taken very early on when settlers came to Australia.
It's cool, and it's so unique to the island. Like, a lot of the works have the sand ingrained in it. And that's really cool about the art centres. One of my favourite art centres, or one that's got so much character, is the Jumpy Desert Weavers out of Alice Springs. I love going and seeing what work they have.
No.
There will be. And in 2023, I did the Fink Desert Race, and it's like the biggest event in Alice Springs. And so they had made these cool, motorbike races and local guys driving cars and Fink in that. And I couldn't help myself. I just bought all of that. It was really cool. Yeah.
You're probably better to touch on like collaborations with like Disney, Qantas, Swatch.
Yeah.
We have a quick pause. Is that it?
This is the last kind of.
Last question. That's right. We'll get copies after that.
Yeah, cool.
Hitting a big milestone of 50 million to artists.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Along the way, we've done some like big collaborations with kind of these monster brands that I've loved as a kid or whatever. We did a Disney collab for the release of the movie Soul. We did a Swatch collab. I don't know. I've got that.
Swatch. That's cool. Indigenous painting. And
on the
should have worn it
the
for
watch
this
face.
episode. That would have been,
We did a Cadbury one as well. It was amazing to see, like, I think it was Karen Lee. Yeah, her art like stacked on these Cadbury Roses boxes in the supermarket. We've done some.
Qantas one was great.
Qantas one. The Qantas one was good. Like that was Qantas. I was on a Qantas ad. And they actually reached out to us in 2017, and they wanted Ed. They said, we want to do an ad.
And I did not want to be in an ad.
Well, we said we want a real entrepreneur, and we like in the creative space. We think Ed Hartley's the guy. And you were having Connor, I think.
Yeah, our third child was born that weekend. So
yeah.
It was an exhibition, and they wanted us to put an exhibition on in Tokyo. Fly to Tokyo with 50 artworks, put on an exhibition, and fly back.
Film
and
it, fly back.
Exactly weekend my third son is due to be born.
So Kate, can I go to Tokyo this weekend? So Ed was out of the picture, and so I got the call up, which was great. My first big acting break. So thanks, Qantas. And they flew me and Julian there just for the weekend to film this ad, and it was awesome. It was fantastic. And I do remember though, I'd never acted. Like I would say I never even did drama at school, and so I'm there. With this full camera crew, and they're like, okay, cool, just act naturally, kind of, go through the site and talk on the phone. And I sort of just blanked. I'm like, and they're like, look, just pretend you're interested in what you're doing when you say the lines. I'm like, pretend I'm interested. It's like pretending. Acting is pretending. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Far out. The
worst scene, actually, they said the most awkward scene was when you called me and had to say the show was a success in this film. And they're like, your brother's even worse.
Yeah, this guy's an amateur. Yeah.
I think I made a bad joke and no one laughed.
Oh man, yeah. No, so that was awesome. And then they put out the ad, and then there were billboards for a little while. Going into the airport, all through the airport, and I had to do a few flights in the next month or two. So I was constantly walking under my face on these in the Qantas terminal. It was all me. Like all the way down, and the edit was always sort of me like daintily eating an ice cream, looking like an idiot, and I'd be there pointing out like, look, it's me, and just I got nothing. Even the hostesses or whatever, I go like check in, I'm like, look, and they'll be like, sir, you're in like 7D. I'm like, it's me, and they're like, 7D, sir. I'm like,
Could you sing the Qantas song again on the piano for us?
Maybe we could
finish this podcast with that.
That's true, actually. I made a Qantas ad when I was about 6 at Dreamworld, didn't I? I sang that song. yeah, I guess full circle, huh? So yeah, that was great. That was super. Like, go to Tokyo for the weekend. You know, they paid for the trip and got to be in a few Qantas emails. So thanks, guys.
Yep.
Last thing, and then you can say a little goodbye spiel. Talk to me about this milestone.
Ooh. That's out the front of the Melbourne Gallery. Some amazing Lucy artwork, and us both with bad haircuts. And was that just after? It's a great article. I can almost read it from here, and the number of 50 million returned to artists or paid to artists is nice.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool milestone. We hit that a while ago, actually. Now,
Yeah.
So
That number
the distribution to artists is huge, and I suspect I'm almost certain that is the most amount distributed to living artists in Australia's history, because there's no other organisation that's had so many artists that sold. There are some auction houses, but they're really the secondary market. So here on the primary market, like empowering artists, I think, like that's a really cool milestone. That was a good fun article.
Yeah. Yes, selling 50. You know, getting artists to get distributing 50 million bucks is an amazing kind of milestone. I'd say I think that's a fair bit higher now, but it could and can and will be higher too.
Oh yeah, like it just keeps going. So that's really awesome. We just try to celebrate them, and we can get a little bit of publicity and it sells more art, even better.
And it's a trick for people building a website. You want a backlink. You ask for a link.
That backlink
Helps you
to the
with
paper really
search
helps.
and SEO. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's amazing. Like I said, you know, before, we've actually, it's quite simple what we've built. We build technology to help artists
Simple.
grow their careers.
The theory is simple.
Yeah, the
building
idea is
hard.
simple, and so it is. You know, when they succeed, we do, and yeah, it's great to see that.
Yeah.
Kind of growing.
And that's the thing. Like, really, it's about connecting now tens of thousands of people, because you have thousands of artists. They list their work. We now have thousands of collectors, and sitting in the middle is like Bluethumb technology and the Bluethumb team. So it's that interconnection of all these people.
Yeah.
Really connected by art, which is something that's so lasting and unique. So yeah, I think we've been super lucky to be able to do it so far, and I guess the purpose of this podcast is really because George and I, this August of 2025, stepping down as CEOs, got an amazing team running the show, and we're going to find an amazing replacement CEO, which will take Bluethumb to the next level.
Yeah, I think
That's a Steve Jobs pause.
yeah. Just getting my thoughts together. I would say this has been the best job I've ever had, and it's never felt like a job. Like, it's been a wonderful 13 years building what we've built, and we're leaving behind a great team who will continue doing all the hard work that we weren't doing anyway. You know, really, it is the team who will continue building this for what I know is going to be bigger and better. And yeah, at this point in my life, I'm literally midway in my life, and the three things I'm proudest to leave behind so far would be Hugo, Stella, and Bluethumb. So yeah, it's been a privilege, and yeah, really big thanks to everyone who's been kind of helping, uploading art, buying art, and supporting us along the way.
And creating art. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you all. Like, a huge thank you to the thousands of artists that have taken part. The 25 people who work at Bluethumb, and the thousands of collectors who have supported the Australian art industry, you know, by buying original art, and it means a lot to the artists, and I'm sure your homes and your household so much the better for it. So thanks everyone. I think that's us signing off. Ciao.